Burkina Faso has been facing ongoing security challenges due to jihadist insurgencies linked to Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Since 2022, Captain Ibrahim Traoré has been the president, having come to power through a military coup. His government has focused heavily on military operations and self-reliance, often distancing itself from traditional allies like France. The themes of national sovereignty and resistance to foreign interference have become central to President Ibrahim Traoré's leadership in Burkina Faso since he seized power in September 2022. These themes are echoed in many of his speeches and policies and are part of a broader trend among military-led governments in the Sahel, particularly in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. Key points on national sovereignty and foreign interference. 1. Expulsion of French troops and diplomats. Under Traoré's leadership, Burkina Faso terminated military agreements with France and expelled French forces from the country in 2023. The government accused France of failing to effectively support Burkina Faso in fighting terrorism and of interfering in internal affairs. 2. Alliance of Sahel States, AES. In 2023, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger formed the AES, a regional bloc of military-led governments. The alliance is aimed at mutual defense, coordination against insurgencies, and resisting what they view as Western neo-colonial influence. The AES countries have all suspended ties with ECOWAS, criticizing the bloc for being manipulated by foreign powers. 3. Promotion of self-reliance. President Traoré has frequently emphasized the people's revolution and the need for Burkinabe to defend their own country. His government has mobilized tens of thousands of civilian volunteers, VDPs, to support the military. There's a heavy emphasis on reclaiming resources and controlling national wealth, especially gold and other minerals, from foreign companies. 4. Popular rhetoric. In speeches and public statements, Traoré has said things like, "Burkina Faso will no longer be a puppet in the hands of imperialists. We will defend our sovereignty at all costs." 5. Ideological shift, Pan-Africanism and anti-imperialism. Traoré has aligned himself ideologically with a new wave of African Pan-Africanist leaders, drawing inspiration from historical figures like Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso's revolutionary leader of the 1980s. He often speaks about breaking the chains of colonialism and rejecting dependency on Western aid. He has denounced institutions like the IMF and World Bank as tools of domination. In some public addresses, Traoré has hinted at seeking new global partnerships, including Russia, Turkey, and China, to escape the traditional influence of France and the West. 6. Media, narrative control and nationalist messaging. The government has tightened control over media, banning French outlets like Radio France Internationale, RFI, and France 24 for what it calls biased reporting or disinformation. Burkinabe state media and pro-government social media accounts frequently promote slogans like La patrie ou la mort, nous vaincrons. Fatherland or death, we shall overcome. Souveraineté ou reign. Sovereignty or nothing. These slogans are part of an ongoing effort to cultivate a nationalist spirit in the population, especially among the youth, who are being mobilized not just militarily but ideologically. 7. Security approach. Sovereignty first. Rather than relying on UN peacekeepers or French troops, Traoré's government has invested heavily in local forces, particularly the Volontaires pour la Défense de la Patrie, VDP. Advocated for joint Sahel operations among AES countries, sidelining ECOWAS and international partners they view as unreliable or neo-colonial. Framed the fight against jihadists as a war of liberation, equating foreign interference with a continuation of colonialism. 8. Regional and global implications. Withdrawal from ECOWAS. Burkina Faso, along with Mali and Niger, announced plans to withdraw from ECOWAS in early 2024, citing its alignment with foreign, especially French, interests. International response. Western governments and human rights organizations have raised concerns over democratic backsliding, repression, and growing ties with Russia, especially via the Wagner Group, though Burkina Faso officially denies such links. Domestic popularity. Despite international isolation, many Burkinabe, especially in rural and disenfranchised areas, support Traoré's assertive nationalist agenda, seeing it as a break from decades of elite corruption and ineffective foreign interventions. 9. Reviving the spirit of Thomas Sankara. Traoré frequently evokes the legacy of Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso's revolutionary president, 1983 to 1987, who famously rejected foreign aid, pushed for self-sufficiency, and led with an anti-imperialist vision. Rhetoric. Traore often refers to Sankara's ideals in speeches, especially themes like self-reliance, land reform, and patriotic service. Symbolism. He revived Sankara-era slogans and aesthetics, uniforms, anti-corruption language, and emphasis on African dignity. Continuity. Sankara once said, "He who feeds you, controls you." Traore echoes this by refusing Western military aid and criticizing international NGOs. However, unlike Sankara, who had a civilian, socialist reformist vision, Traore's rule is primarily military-led and security-focused, prioritizing stabilization over political ideology or broad-based economic reform. 10. Economic implications of sovereignty policies. While the nationalist approach is popular domestically, it presents serious economic risks. A. Foreign aid and investment withdrawal. Burkina Faso has seen a reduction in Western aid and suspension of some international development programs. Sanctions and diplomatic isolation, especially from ECOWAS, have affected regional trade and funding. B. Mining sector nationalism. The government has moved to reclaim control of mineral resources, especially gold, a major export. Traore has hinted at reviewing foreign mining contracts to ensure profits benefit Burkinabe citizens. C. Rising informal economy. As the formal economy struggles, more Burkinabe are turning to subsistence farming, artisanal mining, and informal trade, leading to both economic resilience and increased vulnerability. 11. Security. Territorial control versus civilian rights. While the military has reclaimed some ground from jihadist insurgents, the focus on war and sovereignty has come at a civilian cost. Widespread allegations of abuses by state forces and civilian militias. Mass recruitment of volunteers, VDPs, with minimal training raises accountability and human rights concerns. Media blackout in conflict zones and suppression of dissent have been justified as protecting national security and unity. 12. Future trajectory. What lies ahead? Possibilities. Consolidation of a nationalist regime with heavy military influence, supported by patriotic mobilization and Pan-Africanist rhetoric. Deeper alignment with Russia or other non-Western partners for security and investment, particularly in mining and arms. Potential for regional integration with Mali and Niger into a federal Sahelian alliance, built on military rule and shared resistance to Western pressure. Risks. Prolonged isolation, weakening the economy and further reducing public services. Erosion of democratic norms, with delayed elections and curtailed freedoms. Rebellion or internal dissent, especially if security fails to improve or living conditions worsen. President Traore has positioned himself as a symbol of defiance and independence, rejecting decades of post-colonial dependency. But whether this bold posture leads to true sovereignty or further fragility remains uncertain.